right. Hey, peace, everybody. Welcome to another session of Ibrahim Tanner TV. Assalamu alaikum to everybody that's on stage. Assalamu alaikum to anybody that's going to be tuning in either now or later as well. I'm sure by now y'all know there's been a lot of conflict going over in the Middle East in the Israel West Bank region. And it's affected the world. We've had a lot of protests nationwide. And I just wanted to give, my thoughts on this from an American Freedmen perspective, because we just came off a major protest in our community just a few years back as well. So I got two esteemed brothers with me. Brother Charles Shabazz, you can introduce yourself.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is your brother in Al-Islam and your brother in humanity, Brother Charles Shabazz of Shabazz Islamic Ministries. Shabazz Islamic Ministries is a YouTube channel that I do have. So whenever you guys have a chance, inshallah, please check my videos out and subscribe. And I basically mainly share videos on just everything pertaining to Islam, the religion of Al-Islam, and also I do a little bit also on political issues as well. And inshallah, in the future, because my channel is still in the making, so inshallah I'll be granting future interviews, inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Hope you are all well. My name is Brother Sekou Cisse from New York. I'm a part of an organization called Unite My Ummah, which is an Islamic not-for-profit organization based here in New York. And similar to Brother Charles, just try to bring a lot of clarity as far as, what's going on in our lives and how it ties to Islam. And just a young guy from the community, just trying to better himself and better his community and bring insight to a lot. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Ameen.
So I guess we'll just start with a dua and get right into it. In times of conflict, you should always make dua. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. إذا جاءنا بالله وفاء ربيع الناس يخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. So we pray for victors for all of the believers. Before we get into the history of what's going on in Israel, Palestine, I'm going to say this. There's a saying by Martin Luther King Jr. that injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere.
Right.
There's an even better saying by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a hadith that says, if you see somebody dealing with injustice or being oppressed, you should do something about it. If you can't do that, you should say something about it. And even if you can't do that, you should hate it in your heart.
And he said that's the weakest. And to add on to that hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said that last part about keeping in your heart. He said that's the weakest of faith.
So we see some things. The news media has, America has the greatest propaganda machine. I should just start there, right? Malcolm X, spoke to this decades ago. Right, that the propaganda is so strong, they'll have you hating the oppressed and loving your oppressor.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that ties to this is that part of the reason Hitler was able to do what he was able to do in Germany is because he came to America and picked up on some of the propaganda. He had some people come here and study up under the American propaganda machine, and they took that back to him and was like, man, this is a really great way to miseducate the public and be able to, sway perception and get what you want. So just a little bit of history for those that don't know, because I see in our community, if you African-American Muslim, you're kind of more inclined to what's going on. over in Israel. And then if you're like just in the general American Freedmen community, I don't think, too many people really delve into geopolitics. We have a few, but not too many really delve into geopolitics. And I kind of, get this by scouring the internet and just see what a lot of people say. And you can kind of tell by their posts if they, just briefly read a headline. You know what I'm saying? I seen one brother's post, and there was a parent and he was holding the two babies apart. And it's like, both of you guys, stop fighting. I'm like, wow, that's a real remedial way to put this. So during World War I, there was a guy named Balfour, I believe, and he created this Balfour Act as the Ottoman Empire was ending, and the Western world was, becoming the superpower that it would. Britain wanted to find a place for for Jewish people to go, because they was being mistreated in Europe and other places of the world. And they were looking at, a few different areas. They was looking at Africa. They was looking at the East African region. They was looking at the South African region. They were looking at, different places in Europe. And they decided, because of military strategy, that they needed a front somewhere in the Middle East. So they decided on what's currently known as Palestine. So in 1917, and at this time, Palestinians was 90% of the population. Mm-hmm. So, they started to, get them more and more acclimated into Palestine. By about 1930, it went from 10% to 27%. Then during World War II, with the great Holocaust of the Jews and everything, you've seen that exacerbated, right? After a few decades, about 3 decades, Britain pulled out, and it was just too much warring going on over there, and Palestinians didn't want to give up their land. And just a lot of the agreements didn't favor them. A lot of the language from the Balfour Act was ambiguous, and you had the nowadays Israelis kind of interpreting that in their benefit. So Britain backed out, and here comes America, after World War II, saying, hey, we could use that military front as a strategic base. So they kind of hook on the project, and they've been funding that project since then. Now, the land is basically controlled by Israel. You still have Palestinians there. Every decade it decreases substantially, but you basically got 4 areas that Palestinians live in, and it's all up under Israeli authoritarian government. You got the Gaza, right? And in Gaza, the Palestinians have no freedoms of movement, no civil or political rights, so they can't vote, and they can barely move around, right?
It's an open air prison, the largest open air prison.
Yes, the largest open air prison. Then you got the West Bank. The West Bank has limited movement, little more movement than Gaza. Still no civil or political rights. They can't vote, and they're still under control. Then you get East Jerusalem, and Palestinians have more liberties there than Gaza or the West Bank. But at any time, their rights can be taken away, and they could be sent to Gaza or West Bank. So everybody, like each level that you move up, for one, they give you color-coded IDs, and you can't move up. You can only move down. So there's no going like up and getting more liberties. You got East Jerusalem, Palestinians have more liberties. Israel can take away their rights at any time. These Palestinians in this region still can't vote in elections or even Palestinian elections. And then you have Israel. They can move more freely in Israel, and they can also vote in Palestinian elections. A lot of the times when they vote, those votes get overturned because they're still up under Israeli authoritarian government. And those privileges can be taken away, and their freedom can be taken away, and they can be moved down. With that said, a few days ago, there was a Hamas attack on Israel. It's reported about 150 to 250 people were killed at some sort of outside concert. There's been a lot of stories that came out of this. That part has been confirmed. 40 babies being beheaded was the first story that was floating around the internet. That came to be not true. President Biden did say that, but he was later debunked. And, President Biden talks about aliens as well. So you really can't believe anything that comes out of his mouth. There was another story about a woman who was kidnapped, raped, and beheaded. That came to not be true. She was injured, but it's not sure if she was injured by Hamas or the Israeli military. And then there's just a bunch of stuff going on. You even got people like Justin Bieber that shared a picture of the West Gaza Bank that was bombed by Israel and saying, "Pray for Israel." And I guess somebody had to tell him, like, that's not us. That's not us, right? So then he took it down. But there's just a lot of misinformation going around. You had a bunch of protests. You got a bunch of protests going on in America. We even had one today in Indianapolis on Monument Circle. Here's a picture from the protest. I'm gonna say, what would you say? About 500 people showed up. It
was a lot. It was a lot of people. And I'll tell you something. At that rally, Akeem, when I first went there, okay, so on the steps of the monument that you just showed. Now, initially, the people that were there were the pro-Israeli protesters, right? So it wasn't a whole lot of them, yeah. And so we were chanting and they were chanting, and then we started marching around the street, and then by the time we returned to Monument Circle, which is the place that everybody is seeing right now, the same pro-Israeli protesters, they disappeared, and then we were able to go on the steps of the Monument Circle, and because we greatly outnumbered the pro-Israeli demonstrators. Mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. And just to add on to Brother Charles's point, out here in New York, New York is crazy. It's really, really crazy out here. So tomorrow, actually, there's going to be a huge protest in the downtown section of our city, and there's schools that are shutting down. My younger brother's school, for example, is around that area. Alhamdulillah, it's not too close, but it's like headed down, around that area.
And this is in the Bronx?
No, this is in Manhattan.
Oh, it's in Manhattan.
Midtown Manhattan, yeah. And
wow.
yeah, they're gonna go crazy over there tomorrow for sure. And Columbia University actually shut down. They said that they're not gonna open tomorrow. And there's many other businesses, like big businesses around that area that are probably not gonna open their stores because they're anticipating a large amount of people coming to protest. People have already been protesting here in New York, but tomorrow is probably gonna, we're anticipating one of the biggest, right? So yeah, it's really a lot going on. We did have pro-Israelis come, and they came deep. I'm not gonna lie, they came real deep in New York. I feel like New York has it all, right? Like New York has it all, just like other states, but New York is just it's a diversity bubble. And these people there, it's on Twitter. These people were going crazy, calling for the deaths of Palestinians and all sorts of stuff, man. It was just really, really, really bad. So tomorrow we'll see what happens in New York. But to Brother Charles's point, it's a lot going on.
And there've been protests all over the country. Here's some more video from the one that we. Oh, that was quick. Anyway, so yeah, it's been all over. I thought I downloaded. That's it. I did the wrong one. But anyway, it's been all over the country. And there's not just people protesting to free Palestine and Palestinians. You also have people protesting for Israel as well. Right. Here's one in Beverly Hills. So yeah, it must be really nice to, get outside of your multi-million-dollar mansion and protest in your $100,000 car and, just take up some space. But you see this impact in the whole world now from the African American community, Muslim community, because we are Muslim. We usually lend our support to any oppressed group, whether that's the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, the Palestinians, fighting for peace in Palestine, or the Syrians that got bombed in Syria, right? It really doesn't matter. So I'm scouring through the internet, and just a lot of people that I follow, they got Palestinian flags up, and I'm sure tomorrow almost every khutbah in America, it doesn't matter who the imam is that's giving the khutbah, that's giving the Islamic sermon, is going to be speaking on behalf of Palestinians, right? That's pretty much a foregone conclusion. Right. And I generally don't have no issue with this, but this thing is layered. Dr. Amos Wilson said, America is a nation of nations. It's a nation of nations. It's extremely tribal. And it seems like everybody knows where their tribe is except for one group. And that's the group that's been here the longest and kind of built this, not kind of, but actually did build America up, off the backs of their labor and their ancestors' labor. And when I see this, it just reminds me of a few years ago, we had the George Floyd riots. And while a lot of people did take to the streets, it was a very eclectic bunch. When I looked at it online and when I went to the protest that was in my community, the first thing you notice is it was a lot of young people. The second thing you notice that it was a great deal of white people, and that's good to have allyship. But then when you start to read the signs, it was a lot of signs that didn't add to what was going on to American freedmen males. I seen a lot of pronouns and a lot of trans lives matter and a lot of rainbow flags. And I'm like, what is this about? Because you just get one murder after another, and I don't want to discredit, Breonna Taylor, some of the women that was getting executed by the police as well.
But you know what, brother? I don't mean to break in, but I do want to say this. If you look at the organization, for example, Black Lives Matter, right? And you look at who founded this organization, and these and the ladies, the women who formed them, they're actually from the LGBT community. So while on the offset, like in front, the front deal is like, oh, Black Lives Matter. We're protesting, injustice against American freemen, African Americans, Black Americans, whatever you want to call. But at the same time, they have a far different agenda that's connected to it. And that's why, brother Ibrahim, you're seeing those something you're seeing those like protests like trans lives and all those things.
So there was a hole and they just filled in that gap. And that's what I'm kind of speaking to, is that a lot of the people that would normally or should normally be out there organizing and protesting wasn't there. So these ladies found like a gap and they just filled in that gap, right? And what I seen was a lot of the male elders, 40 years old, 50 years old, was just missing. So you get these women that's able to fill in that gap. But also we were having some conversations, and we were even having these conversations in some of the Islamic chat groups I'm in about people tearing up the property. And I was like, well, we never say this about other groups. So to add to this point, we're not talking about property over in Palestine or Israel, wherever something happened. We're just talking about the people and, what needs to happen for them to be treated humane, right? And if people got to die, if buildings got to be blown up, whatever needs to happen. So one group of people can get the foot of the oppressor off their necks. But it seems like when it comes to our issues over here, people get scrutinized a lot. Right now, IMPD has been on a killing rampage. About 4 or 5 American Freedmen men have been killed in the last 90 days. And when you look at those protesters have had nominal participation. I'm talking no more than 20 people maybe. And it's just all of the scrutiny that comes in with that. It's like, well, he had a gun. Well, he was doing this. Well, he was doing that. And these questions never come in. When we get these pictures in from Palestine, we don't even know if they're Muslim. We don't know what faith they are. We don't know if they are Muslim, if they practice in Muslim, what the situation is. We just know, these are people in the occupied region of America. Yeah. And our hearts go out to them, and we're going to, use some of our political advocacy to try to support them in any way that we can. But when it comes to our own people, it's all these layers of criteria. So much so that there was a shop that was burned down in the Minneapolis area. And people were talking about, this Muslim brother's shop got burned down, and how is he going to make a living? And, just really talking about property. And I'm thinking in my head, you know what? If any of these major cities got to burn down for my people to be treated humane, then it's worth it. We can build it back up. These buildings, the windows that was busted out in downtown Indianapolis, the graffiti that was painted on them, and any type of destruction that happened to them could be undone. The loss of a life cannot. So, just some of these arguments that we was having in our community was really disheartening to me, because we don't have them when it comes to other people's community. And it's kind of like, where does your loyalty lie? What do you prioritize, right? Charity starts at home. So, that's what I see. There was somebody else that had some notoriety that was selling T-shirts that said Muslim lives matter. And this was during Ramadan, when they had stormed Masjid al-Aqsa, I believe I'm saying it correctly, right? And when you see stuff like that, your heart goes out to those people, that's just in a masjid, just trying to pray, trying to have iftar, trying to break their fast. Right. And you got these Israeli soldiers that come in and really, instigate them and try to get them to do something so then they can react violently. Your heart goes out to that. But at the same point, I'm saying, what's going on in our community when there's a lot of correlation between American freedmen living here and Palestinians living in Israel or in occupied Israeli territories, right? When you think of, just the gentrification and the purging that happens in our communities, right? White people coming in with their money, picking us out, living in living in a police state, right? We have freedom of movements, but we really don't, right? And I say this, like, go outside and start jogging right now, right? Especially start jogging like on in some affluent neighborhood, like north of 38th Street, right? You're going to get pulled over. We don't have the type of movement that other citizens in this country does, right? So our movements are restricted. Our ability to have political advocacy, we are able to vote. Not all of us, but a decent amount of us are able to vote. But in return, we just don't get nothing for that vote.
And also too, every certain number of years, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 gets challenged in Congress as to whether it should be implemented, and the president, once the majority approves, the president signs. So even the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is not even grandfathered. This has to be out for voting in Congress, all the time.
Now, in our community, we've been doing this like co-mingling longer than outside of our community, in the Islamic community, because most of our communities are more diverse than outside of our community. I'll just put it that way. Growing up, I've always been around, people of different cultures who practice the same faith. So it's kind of normal to me to, kind of understand geopolitics and how other people empathize with their community. Also, I understand why other people are tribal, because that's how you get things done, right? There's power in people, there's power in the numbers. So a lot of people don't remember this, but, and I'm not, saying this to kind of stir the pot, but, this is just the truth, and it's history now, that the owners of Cup Foods was Palestinian owners. It was Palestinian owners who called the police on George Floyd for the counterfeit $20 bill that we still don't know was counterfeit. Now, since then, there's been some resolution where they say, anything that's nonviolent going on in our communities, that we won't call the police no more. But there was a big discussion around it. There's an article that was in the Associated Press that I'm going to get into that kind of spoke to this. And it was interesting because one person that really does a lot of advocacy that aligns with our community kind of, switched sides when it came to her people. So here's the article. It's called "After Floyd's Death, A Reckoning for Immigrant Store Owners." I'm going to skip some of this. Okay, this moment has also reignited ongoing debates in Muslim communities over the ethical duties of immigrants who own businesses in Black neighborhoods, from when and if they call the police, to the role they can play in creating healthier food ecosystem. We know now that escalating situations to the police almost always does more harm than good, even for something as harmless as a fake bill, which you have to remember that hasn't been confirmed. Mahmoud Abu Mayali, owner of Cup Food store that called the police on Floyd, in a Facebook post, wrote, "Cup Foods, which has served customers in a largely Black neighborhood for 3 decades, will no longer involve the police in nonviolent incidents," Abu Mayala said. "By simply following procedures, we are putting our community in danger," he said in his social media post. Instead, he urged, "Work within your community to find alternatives to policing until the point that local and state officials decide to seriously hold police accountable once and for all." Food and liquor stores, often owned by Arabs and South Asian immigrants, are common in mostly Black, low-income neighborhoods, but the relationship between these store owners and the communities they serve have often been fraught with racial tension. And that's something that we point to. And we even go deeper than that as being people of the Islamic community.
Yes.
We go in there and say, man, y'all Muslim, y'all in here selling a lot of haram in here. Y'all got the pork, y'all got the alcohol.
They don't go to Juma. They don't go to Juma. You'll go to Juma, right? You'll see them, they're working, and you'll come back from Juma and they're still in their same spot. And we all know the hadith connected to if you miss 3 straight Jumas, right? So I don't even have to go into depth about that. So
yeah,
it's really crazy. But yeah, you continue. My bad.
So you got Imam Markham El Amin of Masjid an-Nur in Minneapolis said Floyd's killing. Let me take this off. Floyd's killing may open up store owners' eyes and lead to a watershed moment in changing the relationship between store owners and the community. Everything is different in the right now, Al Amin said in a virtual town hall held last week on the matter. We know not all Arab store owners are bad actors, but there is a narrative around it. There has sometimes been a conflict and a rub relative to that relationship. Rami Nashahibi, director of Chicago's Inner City Muslim Action Network, says a massive cultural transformation is needed for non-Black Muslim corner store owners to be allies for those they serve. So we're talking about, occupying forces, right? And in our community, since we've been basically locked out of wealth, or whatever wealth we had has been plundered, and other people come to this country and able to get the loans and get the grants and get special benefits that we don't get, they find themselves in a position where they are owners of essential needs, essential goods in our community that we don't have access to. So we have to go to them to get it. And these conversations coming up because of the treatment. It's still this same treatment. You think like if you replace white people with brown people, then the treatment gets better. But what we find out, you replace white people with brown people, and sometimes the treatment gets any worse. And that is not, predicative of their religion. It's just that, because America is the nation of nations and they're not a part of our tribe, a lot of times they see us as other. And because of the miseducation of, the immigration system, they've been taught to see us as less than. And that's what this article is getting at. There are many more productive ways of mediating disputes, and we are grateful that this current store owner has publicly declared that involving police will not happen moving forward. Now, Shahibi wrote, well, now it's too late. Right? Because George Floyd is dead. Maybe it could save, the next person from being killed. But George Floyd died and a whole host of other people died when they was protesting George Floyd. But not Shahibi emphasized, I think we have to recognize that the call did not happen in a vacuum. Since the police killing, Iman has partnered with Muslim Anti-Racism Collaborative, a racial justice education organization, to launch Corner Store Witness, a new training curriculum aimed at non-Black Muslim business owners. The AIM creators said is to organize for a new reality around Corner Store. If I had a say so in this, I would say not just non-Black. I would say all immigrants. All people that's not from the community needs this training, right? Because, this idea that there's flat Blackness, if somebody's coming from West Africa or South Africa or Ethiopia, the Northern African region, and they have a darker hue, that they automatically are going to emphasize and understand the plight of my people is just incorrect, right? But I want to get down here to somebody else and I can wrap this up. Because it speaks about something that I was really particular to when it talks about a sister that normally does protests with a lot of.
Talking about Sister Linda.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I had it.
Hold up a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Linda Sarso.
Many Arab and South Asian store owners responded to allegations of racism by pointing to their own marginalized identities. Oh, man, I went too fast. Marginalized identities and their need to protect their income. Many are working class, some are undocumented. Activist Linda Sarsour, whose father owned a store in Brooklyn, Crown Heights neighborhood for 38 years, urged Muslims not to blame cup food. Owner for Floyd's death, not that the store has a positive relationship with locals. Her statement was, I understand that we have a long way to go to build transformative relationships between Arab Asian store owners and local Black communities, she wrote in a Facebook post. These communities deserve business owners who are contributors to communities, not just takers. But for some of the gulf between store owners and the neighborhood in which they operate has only grown during the protest, right? So she tried to say some things, but it didn't work, and she was being called out. I don't know if y'all familiar with Linda Sarr.
Yeah, I want to just. I'm sorry, Brother Charles. Go ahead.
Yeah, jump in. I'm gonna grab a picture of her real quick.
I was basically gonna say that, yeah, like, you know, she's, you know, as she mentioned, her father owns a store here in Brooklyn. I think what a lot of these people neglect, like, you know, it's crazy how she came to the defense of, you know, pretty much saying, oh, you know, nobody blamed the cup food owners, but she doesn't want to talk about how many Arab store owners, right? And East, you know, like just around that region, right? They contribute to low key the downfall of, you know, like the black community, right? Because they sell liquor in their stores. It's not all of them, but a majority of them do. They sell Lucy's, right? They sell all of these things that contribute to the continuation of, you know, the detriment to the specifically the Black American community, right? African American community. So it's just, you know, it's just really funny how they like to deflect, right? And instead of just admitting, like, yes, my people are wrong, my people, you know, perpetuate a lot of, you know, racism, a lot of you know, just dysfunction, you know, continuous dysfunction to the community. They tend to say, oh yeah, that happens, but, you know, you got to understand that we're trying to mend this up, you know, we're trying to fix this up. And it's like, it's kind of like a slap in the face, right? Like, if you read in the article, she's like, oh, like, you know, she's rushing to the defense of cup foods. And, you know, her statement after that is that, like, you know, oh, you know, we're still trying to mend the relationship between, you know, local Arab owners and, you know, the greater Black American community, when it should have been the reverse, right? That, like, you know, yes, our communities, right? Like our people, we come and we contribute to, you know, the dysfunction of the Black American community, and we need to do better and leave it at that, right? And then maybe lightly say, okay, you know, I don't know the story about, you know, what happened with the cup foods, but, you know, we're gonna move, you know, forward with trying to improve things. But, you know, this is the same thing, that this is the same rhetoric they all mention. They never like to fully admit to their, you know, to their mistakes, and, you know, and to what they, you know, ultimately contribute, the negative that they contribute to our communities. And it's just, you know, it's crazy, you know. And one other thing that I wanted to say, and I'm sorry, you know, I'm probably talking a bit. We have this thing in our communities, going back to what Brother Ibrahim was saying, where we have selective, how would I say this? Like, we select who we advocate for, right? This is a huge epidemic within the Muslim community, right? All of these things that are happening to Palestine, to Yemen, to Syria, wallahi, I pray, may Allah bring ease, may Allah bring justice to these communities and to these respective countries and their people. Allahumma ameen. But yeah, one of the greatest forms of genocide happened in this land, the United States of America, right? Black Americans were killed. You know, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the R word, you know, on this, but, you know, anything that's evil was done to Black Americans, and they were forced to build this country for free, right?
Not only that, Aki, another genocide, in addition to our ancestors, also the original people of this land. You know, you know, Malcolm X couldn't have said any better. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us, and it landed on the native indigenous people as well. They, first of all, they came here. You want to talk about biological weapons of mass destruction? The Europeans came in with that. Okay, they came in with all kinds of diseases. They wiped themselves on blankets and stuff and gave it to the indigenous people and killed them off, right? And then to add salt to their wounds, they came with all kinds of the latest weapons to not only kill them off and force them on the reservations, they even built boarding schools, right? to kidnap all these native indigenous children to brainwash them. And you know what? A few years ago, especially in Canada, I'm sure there's a lot of them here in America, they found remains of children under these boarding schools.
They found one in Florida not too long ago that had a lot of American Freedmen boys there. But you got to think of, like, when you talk about biological warfare, that wherever there's an American Freedmen community, there's going to be undrinkable water. There's going to be lead in the water. There's going to be
Flint, Michigan.
There's going to be bad infrastructure. There was an article in Indianapolis. There was an article in East Chicago. You know, it's Flint, Michigan all over. Right, they're going to be. We know we get incarcerated the most. We have the highest unemployment. We have the lowest life expectancy as American freedmen men. You know, like the atrocities of slavery continue. It just continues to perpetuate itself. So on the far end, you see Linda Sarsour in the hijab. Right next to her, you see Tamika Mallory. What this was, you know. Everybody thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win. So they was gearing up for this I am woman, hear me roar, women are going to take over. So they was putting together, you know, these women to go out and do the march. I believe that's also why Barack Obama left all of those judge seats vacancy, even including one of the Supreme Court justices' seat, because everybody thought that Hillary Clinton was just going to come in, take over, and then Hillary Clinton was just going to nominate all of these women judges, and this was going to be year of the woman. And that would have landed her right smack dab at the head of, you know, 100 years, the centennial after the suffrage movement. And she was going to basically do this big woman thing, but Trump came through and ruined those plans. So anyway, these little coalitions was already constructed, so the show must go on. So now you got Linda Sarsour and Tamika Mallory in this picture. They were advocating, you know, doing some women's rights, but also some Black Lives Matter work. Then some, you know, every time we get into like a little bit of spotlight where you start to get a little bit of money, the people got to know, where does your allegiance lie? Does it lie with white capital, or does it lie with your community? So they brought up some old stuff, and they said, you know, Tamika Mallory supports Farrakhan, and Farrakhan is anti-Semitic, and you need to denounce Farrakhan. And they were saying Linda Sarsour was anti-Semitic because she said some things that was pro-Palestine, and they took it as being anti-Israel. Right. So they took him off the thing. Tamika Mallory was able to get back in good graces with the DNC when she kind of like played out the whole movement with the Cadillac commercial and talking down to protesters in Louisville. Linda Sarsour didn't come back, but that's just so that you can see her. And I kind of understood why, because like I said, America is a nation of nations. And she was just being tribal. She was just sticking up for her people. She's a Palestinian woman. Right, her dad made a living and was able to provide for his family by being. I'm guessing he may have owned a bodega or a gas station or something. Right, so that's where her allegiance lies. It's problematic for us because we really don't know where our allegiance lies. Right, and ours is just all over the place. And I'm looking and I'm like, I don't have no issue with people going out and advocating for Palestinian freedom. Right. And for them to have justice and equity and do whatever they need to do, right? They got everything against them, just like we do, right? Every time, you know, the media has kind of trained you to, you know, see the American freedmen community as problematic, and anything that we do is problematic unless we advocating for the other group. And that's the same for the Palestinians, right? There's another connection that the media has kind of trained you that any offense or defense that's, you know, too good done by the Palestinians is a terrorist act. And on the flip side of that, if it's done by the Israeli, it's a defensive act, you know. So with that being said, she, you know, at that point in time, she's just sticking with her group.
Yeah.
Now it's problematic to me because, you know, I understand what's going on, and the bravest thing one can do as being part of a group that oppresses another group. See, it's easy to look on the other side and say what they doing wrong. It's harder to confront your own people and say, no, this is what we doing. And we need to correct this, right? You can talk about white supremacy all day, but if you can't correct your own actions and the actions of your people, then where is that going to get you? And for her, at that point in time, it was easy for her to stand up for Cup Foods owner, which that wasn't their first transgression in the community. They had a bunch of crazy allegations, and I'm not going to bring that up, but it was a bunch of stuff going on with that place, right? They were not, somebody in the community that was bringing, peace and justice to the community. Cup Foods was a problem. And if they're still operating, they probably still are, right? The issue with me is that, instead of like speaking out against that and seeing that as an injustice and correcting that, she just took the side of her people. And it was bad because you have some of us that said the same thing. Well, George Floyd was on this and he was unemployed and maybe he knew the officer. Like, what does any of that matter? You don't ask none of these questions when it comes to another community, so you shouldn't ask these questions when it comes to ours. And also for the people who's going out and protest, I'm not telling you not to protest. I went down just to check out, what was going on at Monument Circle. And like I said, it's my Islamic obligation to be in support of those who are oppressed. But also, charity starts at home, right? So where are you on the issues that's happening in our community? Like I said, IMPD has been on a rampage, hitting people off bikes, killing them, shooting people as they run away, and it's always I was in fear of my life. It was always I was on the defense. That's the same thing you hear from the Israelis, right? It was always no. They are the transgressions and we are just defending ourselves. Well, it's like, that was their land before y'all got there. And now they are occupied people. What else? They can either fight or die slow. They got two options. So I understand what's going on there. And I'm not listening to the propaganda like some people from our community, but we know they not free. And my issue is that, what's the use of having all this money if you can't be free? I have to, call out my people, and I'm saying, I'm not asking you to do less. I'm not asking you not to lend support to Palestine, but what I am asking you for is to prioritize your own people. So I'm not asking you to do less. I'm asking you to do more. Every Tuesday morning at noon, they protest for Gary Harrell outside of the prosecutor's office, right? You can get in contact with Danielle Howard. We got an issue going on in our community. I do not want to see Black men getting killed by IMPD every other week. And then we have a mayoral race, right? They had a Black agenda where they didn't talk about no Black issues. Did we tune in to that? Don't just tune in to CNN and Al Jazeera when something's going on across the world. So I just challenge my people to do more, right? Because I don't want to see that, that ability to just shut off what's going on in our community and focus outside of your community. And I'll say this just before we, wrap this little part up. And if y'all want to speak on it, y'all can. Being labeled anti-Semitic will lose you everything, right? Advocating for your own people won't. We've established ourselves in this community where we can advocate for each other, and you really won't lose anything. You might take a small pay cut here and there, but being labeled anti-Semitic, you will lose everything, right? So the fact that there's more to risk advocating for other people and less advocating for your own group and more to gain, that should also show you, like, come on, man, what are we doing here? So
Yeah,
I'd like to see us do more in our community.
Yeah.
When it comes to these issues of police brutality,
One analogy I want to bring up is Dua Deen. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when Allah was giving him the message of Islam, he told him to go and warn those, like bring the message to those and warn those closest to him first. Right? Those closest to you first. And so, like, if we want to make that into an analogy, the Black American community who's close, like, no matter what happens, your own people are going to be closer to you than other groups of people, right? You're going to be closer, even though we're brothers and sisters with Arabs, with East Asians, with, whichever group that considers themselves Muslims, you still have more proximity, right? More closeness to your own people than any other group of people, right? I'm not gonna go if I were to go to a different community and try to preach the message of Islam. Let's say I go to a Bengali community, right? They would resonate more with someone who's a
Who
Bengali,
look like them? Yeah,
right? Than with me. And
yeah,
that's natural. I would never be upset with that. And so, to tie it back to the analogy, you know, Black Americans really have to, focus and prioritize their own issues, right? In their own home. There's a fire in your home, right? And you're trying to put out fires in other people's homes. You can't do that. You have to put out the fire in your home and establish that foundation. And you can simultaneously help and put out fires in other people's homes as well. Both can happen at the same time. Both are not, you can't, it's not a system where you do one without the other. And I feel like this is a big mistake that a lot of us do. And I just pray that Allah, makes everything easy and allows for us to realize this error and this khata, this mistake that
inshallah.
Black Americans and just in general are committing, and hopefully bring light to it, inshallah. Brother Charles, you wanted to?
Yeah, I just want to add an analogy based on what you and Brother Ibrahim were saying. On the airplane, you know how the flight attendant goes through, safety precautions before, you take off. One of the things they have is a device that you breathe in, right? Um, the instruction is for you, especially if you have small children, you need to first of all use that breathing thing on yourself. So that way you would have enough oxygen to help your child or whoever is under you. Same thing.
No good to nobody else if you can't be good to yourself. And I don't want to see us go above and beyond and lose things. And at the end of the day, we ain't got nothing. And certain people still got everything. You know who hasn't made a statement yet? This man ain't said nothing. Right. This man's Palestinian. Maybe the most famous Palestinian in America. I'm going to say that. Yeah. One of the most internationally recognized stars in the world. So, we jump out there on the limb and lose everything. There was a young lady who just graduated from law school, and they took everything from her. We seen Mark Lamont Hill. He was on the upward trajectory, went to the UN. Instead of making a speech about his own group, he made a speech about Palestinian freedom. It's like, come on, man. You got in front of
CNN. He lost his job with CNN.
He almost lost his books. He almost lost his little book coffee store, but they said you can have that. You ain't making no money with that anyway.
Yeah.
So that's just my challenge to my people. Now we got to get into this celebrity. I did a first video on Black American sellout culture, and this is like part 2, man. Before I knew what was going on, and I'm laughing here, but I don't really mean to, right? Before I knew what was going on, y'all know who he is? That's DJ Khaled, man. Y'all didn't know that? That's Khaled. That was DJ Khaled. We need to focus on viewing ourselves as one community and mending personal relationships one-on-one instead of separate communities. Of course.
I mean, to that comment, right? Other communities do it, and there's nothing wrong with it. Look at it, the community that I'm in right now is in Parkchester. It's it's pretty mixed, but on one side is a Bengali community. They have an Islamic school, and obviously many of their students are Bengali, right? Like they're private, and they don't. It's not like they reject people. Like if my son or if any of your sons would want to go to that school, as long as you pay the money, you can go. Like they're not gonna bar any Muslim from going. But one of their main priorities is their people. So it's like, when are we going to, when are we going to focus on our people? While, because and then a lot of times you notice that like when you start to say things like that, like, oh, well, we're going to focus on our community, they automatically
xenophobic
community. Yeah, you're xenophobic. Well, what about that community? And it's like
you're accused of being racist or nationalistic.
You're saying that I'm xenophobic because I want to advocate for Black people. If I were to say that I'm advocating for another group of people, you would not say that. You would not call me a xenophobe. But the moment I say I'm going to advocate for you don't know how many Muslims have called me within the lines of a xenophobe. Oh, well, what about this community? Well, what about that community? Well, what about my community? Well, what about the Black American community?
And you know, I keep that straight, you know, that's straight up hypocrisy. It
Right.
really is. Because first of all, if like you said, if Pakistanis help Pakistanis, Arabs help with Arabs, Bengali help with Bengali, nobody says anything. Latinos help Latinos, Chinese help with Chinese. But it's always a crime because you know what? These people, they're wearing the lens of European Americans. That's what they're wearing. They're white supremacist lens, even though they got a far different name and practice a far different faith. You know, the late Imam Waruddin Muhammad, Rahimullah, may Allah have mercy on him, he had a book called An African American Genesis. And in his book, he talks about how the European American, even after all these years, we're supposed to be liberated and free and have the same rights as everybody. The European American still looks at us as their little brothers and look at themselves as big brothers. You know, like big brother, you know, feels that they're obligated to the little brother and they can't let their little brother, their little sister go. Right? So it's like they still feel we belong to them. That's the problem. And the saddest part is other people are wearing those lenses.
And everybody does it. Everybody does it. It's not just us. It's not just us. This is the Indiana Muslim Advocacy Network, right? This is them. They're a political advocacy group. And when you go to their board of staff, let me see who we are. This is them, right? Yeah. You got Saeed Ali Saeed, Azar Khan, Menez Qureshi, Mahmoud Iqbal, he's the treasurer, Ahmad Rami Satagi, Samir Kulia, Atta Hussein, Muin Khawaja, Samir Habib, and then you got executive director Fatima Khan, right?
Yeah.
None of those are us. Everybody does it. And they were doing a lot of advocacy. They do a lot of advocacy work. And they had called me, you know, a few years back when they was really ramped up and they was doing a little bit more. And I had just asked them about some of the issues in our community and they ain't had no answers for it. And I told them, you know, maybe y'all should change our name from, you know, the Muslim to just immigration, because a lot of their policies was about immigration. Now, since then, they put some language on there about Black people, but you got to understand, when these people came to Indiana, they could practice their Islam proudly at their workplace, right? If you got to go make salat, just tell your boss, hey, I'm gonna need a couple minutes and you're gonna be all right. You can go through the airport. The women don't have to worry about taking their hijab. Even when they go in the government building, they might search you, but they ain't asking you to take your hijab off. We secured that before you even got here. You can be a Muslim proudly in public. If you want to wear an abaya, a hijab, a burqa, whatever you want to do, there's prayer rooms and quiet spaces in colleges, in hospitals. You know, we have Islamic chaplains in penitentiaries, you know, also on some college campuses do, some don't. But the point I'm making is that Islam was established before they got here. What y'all doing is y'all just don't want to have to deal with people that's anti-immigration. So y'all don't want to have to deal with that right wing. So y'all kind of cloaking in Islam, knowing that if something happens, we'll advocate for y'all. But see, in their policy, I don't know if they changed it yet, but I didn't see nothing for us, right? I didn't see nothing but us. But when something like 9/11 happens, then everybody comes running back to our community for protection because they know who understands this political, you know.
They understand who's brave, right? Like I'm not gonna lie, many and you know, some people are gonna disagree with me, or they're probably going to be like, this guy is crazy. But, you know, many immigrants who come here, they're cowards, right? Like you came from your country. And like what you should do is when you come to this country, you're supposed to say, Alhamdulillah, may Allah bless and preserve these Black Americans. May Allah, you're supposed to be making constant dua for Black Americans. Look, Alhamdulillah, as a result of their advocacy, of them dying, of everything that they've contributed to this country, we are not able to, you know, as Brother Ibrahim said, we are not able to enjoy the fruits of their labor. But they don't do that. They come and they play, as Brother Charles Shabazz mentioned, that European playbook, right? That playbook that tells them, hey, you know, they're the bottom caste. You better keep them there. They're, you know, these people are bad. They, you know, they're all on drugs, and, you know, they all got, you know, this or that going on. They're literally told and indoctrinated to keep this mindset. And it's disgusting how Muslims, you know, are just cowards now, right? Like, you know, like it's especially immigrant Muslims just coming to this country and just falling right into the lap of this. And you know, to one point that I wanted to mention, how do you call yourself and, you know, Islamic, you know, whatever foundation, when you like there's no policy for Black Muslims?
You know,
that's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you know, Brother Sekou and Brother Ibrahim, if you look at the history of Islam in America, I mean, this is not a recent phenomenon. Okay, you could even go further back. You got masajids that were founded in the early 1900s, 1920s, and so forth. And you know, if you look at the history of African American Muslims, right? The thing is that the majority of the organizations that served the African American community in those days were what you would call pseudo-Islamic or heretical Islamic groups, like the Moorish Science Temple, the Nation of Islam, the Ahmadiyya movement, or the Qadiani. The Qadiani was the closest thing to immigrants that actually came to our community and reached out to us, you know, genuinely. But they were heretical. So as far as practicing Islam based on the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the way it was formed in the indigenous community was by former members of these heretical groups, African American members, who actually went overseas and studied Islam and came over here and realized what they've been taught was not Islam. And then, you know, they started teaching the deen. There were always immigrant Muslims in this country. They, you know, but the thing is, like you said, Brother Sekou, they're cowards. They don't want to come around except to come in our community and make a dollar 50 cents off of us by selling haram and not coming to bring Islam.
They're literally vultures, hey, you know, that just come and just.
This is you know, and this is what he's talking about. This is a predominantly extremely poor American freedmen slum, I'm gonna say, and all of the show was basically just fish and chicken. But you know,
y'all don't do that shit to nobody, bro. Shut the fuck up talking to me, bro. Y'all don't do that shit to nobody. Oh yeah. What you want to do with me?
Come here. Look at this mouse out here.
Look at this.
No,
look what he's talking about.
Come here. Look at
oh, come on, man.
Man, and he lives here. He ain't even running. Look at the mouse.
Oh man.
Wow.
This motherfucker live here.
Astaghfirullah, man. Wow.
If y'all see that they had the food on the floor. They had the food on the floor. They making the food on the floor. The mouse just chilling like, man, this is my home. People don't do nothing to me. If anybody gonna leave, it's y'all need to get your food and go. This is my home, right? And that's what we're talking about. You know, in our communities, selling haram, selling, all of these smoke products that I couldn't even mention. I'm not a smoker, but all of these smoke products, and you can get the vapor, and you can get some alcohol now, and it can be cold on, now they sell it on Sundays as well, and if you want to, smoke some marijuana, we got the different type of papers, and you want the lottery and all this stuff, right? But we got to speak up about it. We got to say something about it, right? Because that's not it.
It's crazy.
Nothing wrong with being pro-Palestinian, but are not pro. And like there has to be some reciprocity in that. Hardly find any Arab fighting for or alongside Black Americans, and that's the thing. I went to some of the George Floyd protests. There was a few, but it wasn't many. But and then from that, you get into Black American sellout culture, and then I got to hear stupid stuff like this.
I woke up, man, this morning with some disturbing news out of Israel. The Hamas kidnapping children, putting them in cages, killing women, killing the elderly. That's some coward shit. That's cowardly. And for all y'all Black Lives Matter who ain't saying nothing, well, let me figure out exactly what happened before I say anything. Fuck you. Figure out what? It ain't never been cool to kidnap kids and put them in cages. It ain't never been cool to kill women and elderly. Never been. No matter where you from, what you represent, what tribe you from, it don't matter. There ain't never been no cool. There ain't never been none that nobody supported. And then you go and hide and put the kids in front of you as a barricade. That's some coward shit. All you politicians who always have something to say on the contrary, I see you. Fuck you. All you Black Lives Matter people who always have something to say and always supported everything else and you quiet now, fuck you too. Only place in the world where I can go and study Torah and eat kosher food. Only place in the world. Some coward shit, dog. And all y'all support it, fuck you. On my mama, we don't respect none of y'all for that. Peace.
Now that's
He's on his mama too.
That's if y'all don't know, that's Amar'e Stoudemire. He's has some type of connection to Israel. I believe maybe one of his parents was an Ethiopian Jew or something like that. And
he claims he has like Hebrew roots.
Yeah. You know what's funny? When you talk to the Ethiopian Jews, they get treated like second-class citizens as well.
Israel.
It's in Israel, yeah. So it's not really a religion thing, right? If you're an Israeli Palestinian that was there from the beginning, or a Christian Palestinian, you get oppressed as well. So it's really not a religious thing. I'm sad that to see him trying to make that, and I don't know how much information he has or even the capacity to understand, because he
obviously
just
the same level of ignorance as the other ones.
He just immediately.
But let me. Yeah. I want to add something on this anti-Semitism accusation against those who are pro-Palestinian, which I'm sure all three of us are, right? Let me share this with you. And if you look at the history of Zionism and these Zionists that came on the scene, many of them came from Europe. These are called Ashkenazis, right? Ashkenazis are the ones running Israel. They are actually white supremacists just wearing Judaism as a cloak and not really practicing, all right? And you also, the Ethiopians, they even claim to be Semitic people, okay? And like you said, and like we just talked about, the Falashas or the Beta Israel, which are the Ethiopian Jewish people, they're being discriminated. Even the Hebrew Israelites, the African Americans that migrated there from Chicago, right? They've been like, they couldn't get Israeli citizenship for decades. And also you have a group called the Mizrahi Jews. The Mizrahi Jews are Jewish people whose ancestors came from North Africa and the Middle East. They even discriminated. As a matter of fact, they were the ones who established the Israeli chapter of the Black Panther Party to raise sand against the Israeli government. This is fact. Check it out. And
It's crazy.
And so the people that Israel discriminates are truly of Semitic heritage. And the people who are orchestrating this are not Semitic. So it tells you who is the real anti-Semitic state. The true anti-Semitic state is not Palestine, because the Palestinians themselves are Semitic people. It's Israel.
And to add to that, all Jews are not Zionists. So you'll see, especially in New York City, you'll see some Hasidic Jews show up to the protest.
Yep.
And they'll say, you know, we're not even supposed to be there. We don't have no land, right? This is part of our discipline, that our land was taken away from us for not doing the right thing. We don't have no land, and we should be out of it. You know, Israel shouldn't even be a state. You know, so you'll see that now. Those people don't have as big as platform as the pro-Zionists do, right? Which started off as a Christian thing, and now it's synonymous with, you know, Jewish people in Israel. But you'll see them say, you know, we don't have nothing to do with that, right? And for our people that's there, we should leave. And my thing is, you know, nobody had this same advocacy for when they was bullying Kyrie Irving. Here goes LeBron James with a statement. The man that only reads one page of every book he opens up got a statement. I know he didn't write this statement, and that's why he put him and Maverick Carter at the end. But it said the devastation in Israel is tragic and unacceptable. The murder and violence against innocent people by Hamas is terrorism. The Spring Hill Company family sends our deepest condolences to Israel and the Jewish community. We pray for peace in the region and reiterate our continued commitment to fight hate in all its forms. We all must work to ensure this tragedy does not spread even more hate, racism, and anti-Semitism, right? It's you always got to add that anti-Semitism on there, right? Because that's, you know, that's how you put the scarlet letter on people. And we know LeBron doesn't stand up to anything, because when he tried to come out and advocate for the Uyghurs and Xinjiang, that they just told him, man, if you don't shut up, and he just shut up. He said, you know what, on second thought, I don't know nothing about that really, so I shouldn't be talking. And of course, you know, I know people like to prop him up as the most politically outgoing, the most, you know, social impactful person, but at the end, at the end of the day, he's just a token. Man, I'll shake your hand, but you ain't about to just walk me around. You just ain't about to just walk me around like that, right? And what we see, you know, these people have no backbone, right? They have no backbone. When Kyrie Irving put that post up, about from Hebrews to Negroes, I believe that was the name of the documentary. And this was being sold on Amazon Prime. And I believe the author was a Hebrew Israelite. And he just put it up. He said, you know, this is some good history. Y'all need to check it out. Now, some of the things that they were upset about in the documentary, it's not confirmed, you know, but it doesn't make one anti-Semitic. And, you know, people share things all the time. I share stuff. I don't always agree with 100% of the stuff I'm sharing. Sometimes I'll specifically take a quote out of something and say, this is what I'm interested in. Other times I'll just share and say, you know, you guys look at it. Everybody does it. But I know what it was. It was a high intention from all of the Kanye West, you know, stuff that he was spewing, right? And then that just kind of poured over to where, like, we need somebody else to spank because, you know, Kanye is off his rockers. So, you know, it fell into Kyrie Irving's lap, and you didn't see nobody come up and defend him. I didn't see LeBron James say anything. I didn't see Amar'e Stoudemire come out of this community and say, hold up, man, y'all like bullying this guy, right? I didn't see the Muslim community come out. You know who protested for Kyrie Irving? Black Hebrew Israelites. Black Hebrew Israelite. It wasn't the Muslim community that came out in full force like they doing for the Palestinian community. And if I believe Kyrie Irving is Muslim. I believe he's Muslim, right?
He took his shahada.
He's kind of all over the place, but I believe he's Muslim, right? But it wasn't us that came out in full force like we do for the Palestinians. It was the Hebrew Israelites. Shout out to them, right? For standing up and taking that heat for our brother, for his ability to have free speech, because that's what I feel like social media is. People saying do anything on social media. And at first he wasn't even suspended. Then they came back and they asked him some questions, and he answered the question. And it's like, okay, that's enough. Like, even Phil Knight said, he did it. He stepped on the line. That's the point of no return. I'm like, Phil, the kid that used child labor, but you just got, you got all this silly stuff. Then you got this guy, man. This guy right here can barely read, but he's sending his support. He's sending his support. He's sending a jet filled with supplies to Israel. This is Floyd Mayweather. I'm not even going to get into this stuff, but he's sending his private jet filled with supplies to Israel.
SubhanAllah.
Who do you think who do you think cashes Floyd Mayweather checks? Man, they don't need your stuff. They give you your stuff. These people just pledge allegiance. They just do anything they can to show that they against their own community and they with somebody else. You can't be no more anti-freedman than this. This is horrible. The statement by Lebron, the statement by Amar'e Stoudemire, the statement by Floyd Mayweather, none of this stuff is going to put them in good graces with the Zionist community. The soon as they say something that's out of bounds, they're going to turn on them and they're going to come running back to their community. It always happens. It happened with Bill Cosby. It was Bill Cosby running around doing the pound cake speech.
Yeah. As far as giving condolences to the Jewish community and all that is concerned, now, I don't see anything wrong with that, right? Because all lives were taken out, okay? But the thing is, to me, when lives are taken away, I mean, you don't have to be pro-Palestinian or pro-Zionist, but at the same breath, man, you gotta call a spade a spade. LeBron, Amar'e, all these people, it's obvious that they have not done their homework or their research into what was happening and the seed of the problem of what we're seeing today over there. And they're just being, mind warped and puppeteered by the Zionist media.
And heavy on the puppeteer, right? Like these people, what people don't understand, and what's sad is that most of our community eats this up, right? So like they look up to individuals like Floyd because he's flashing, he got all of this money, right? LeBron James, right? He's one of the best basketball players, in history, as most people argue, right? Amar'e Stoudemire, who's also who's also a great basketball player as well. They look up to these individuals, right? And so, but what a lot of people don't understand is that these individuals' paychecks come from up top. Like these people are not like LeBron James. I believe he's a billionaire, right? But LeBron James still has a boss.
He's almost there if he's not.
He does exactly. He has a boss, right? Even with his high status, he has a boss. And if he don't do what the boss want him to do, he in trouble, big trouble. You know what I mean? So, and this goes even for Floyd, right? So, and they don't want to risk that, and it's cowardice. I'm not gonna lie, it's cowardice. You are willing. You don't want to lose money or status at the expense. Imagine if LeBron James were to be very serious about advocacy for his community, right? Like really, 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 really. Imagine how many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. Imagine LeBron James makes a statement saying something like, reparations for Black Americans because we built this country. You know how many Black Americans would tune into that who probably never or have heard of reparations? Like they would automatically tune in. You know how many people he could potentially turn Floyd Mayweather, same thing, and many of these black, celebrities. But that's the complete opposite of what they want them to do, right? They want them to be under their, like in a headlock, in a continuous headlock where they can't break out, right? No matter wherever I go, I got you in this headlock, and you coming with me.
You know what? And that's
out of this.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we witnessed, like the late 90s, early 2000s in the hip hop world. Yeah. Back, if you remember the hip hop music back in the late 80s, early to mid 90s, a lot of the rappers, they were bringing message of positivity in uplifting the African American community, right? And then even in the lyrics, you would hear some of the messages that we as Muslims are familiar with, even though they may not necessarily practice Islam the way we understand Islam. But they see, but the thing is, the powers that be understood how powerful the influence of those pieces of music are on the young people, especially in hip hop. And they're like, oh no, we gotta do something with this. So that's how they kept promoting gangster rap, rapping of corruption and all that. And now that has become the dominant theme in hip hop. And you see all these celebrities and singers, even verbally, dedicating themselves to Shaitan.
Yep.
There was a foundation of Islam when hip hop first started, right? Islam had a major influence on hip hop.
Exactly.
Over the years, as it gets further and further away from its roots, you see it become more mainstream. It kind of took a shift from Islam to Christianity now to like just atheism, right?
Atheism, yeah,
but there is some Islamic roots when it comes to hip hop and hip hop artists and some of the stuff that they was preaching. You had a heavy dose of Nation of Islam, 5%ers, Answer Allah, More Science, Temple of America, Orthodox Muslims, all up in New York City, where they was able to promote hip hop and kind of spread it to the masses. Now that you see it kind of shift, right?
Well, look at the Quran. Look at how we recite Quran. Al-Fatiha, for example. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us when we do recite Quran to do it in rhythmic tones. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Malik Yawmiddin. You're listening to the rhymes on each end, right? And you do it in rhythm. So here, right there, you get hip hop from there.
I never thought to like make that correlation, but yeah. He says, are you three on this panel pro, con, or neutral? I'll just speak for myself. I'm pro oppressors getting the oppressor off their neck. So when I see stuff happen in Palestine, I see things happen in Israel, I see things happen in Masjid al-Aqsa, it touches me away, but I know how to prioritize this. And I understand my greatest impact is going to be to my people over here. So yeah, I can say I'm pro-Palestine, right? But I'm also, pro-American Freedmen. I'm pro-reparations, and I do everything I can over here because I understand my greatest impact has always started here. When you think about the 1960s, civil rights, once we got ourselves about a Jim Crow, we was able to lend support to South African apartheid, right? And like Brother Shabazz said earlier, you got to do for yourself first. You got to secure yourself before you can help others. Just think about you in a brawl and you get knocked down and you're on the ground and you want to help your guy. What you gonna do? Like reach up and help him? No, you got to get back up on your feet first. And that's the position that we in. We got to get back on our feet. We got to get back stabilized before we can lend our support. And political support is not something that, you know, has an infinite bound, right? You only get so much. You only get so much. So, you know, you can't be all spaced out or you're not going to be able to get anything done. And when I just see these celebrities making these ignorant comments, it's like, wow, you know, I want people to understand, you know, Muhammad Ali came and gone. I don't think there'll ever be another one.
No.
I don't think there ever will be another one, right? You know, these people get close to the stove, they see how hot it is, like Colin Kaepernick, and then they just go
Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, don't forget about him.
Mama, you respect
and also
respect.
and let's look at all those other athletes, right? Especially those who were at this press conference in Cleveland in 1967 in their support of Muhammad Ali.
Well, you know what the story is about that, right?
What's the story? You're talking about with Dr. Herman. What?
They actually, everybody was there. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar,
Jim Brown,
yeah. They were all there to actually persuade Muhammad Ali to just do the exhibition. He was so staunch in his stance that he actually persuaded them to support him because they seen he wasn't moving. So they just basically got in with him. So they came to do something and he actually persuaded all of them, like, nah, I'm standing on this. You know, y'all can either stand with me or I'm gonna go out here alone. And they said, man, we're gonna stand with you, right? And that's what I mean. Like, and don't get me wrong, man. I love like a lot of the stuff that Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf did and still does, right? And the advocacy work that he's laid out and is still a part of. But when it comes to Muhammad Ali, he was just different because he wasn't afraid to speak. You know, just ask me anything. Just ask me anything, right? And I'm gonna speak truth to power. That's what I'm here to do. And also it was a different era, right? Even though they was able to, you know, cut off what little endorsements he had and what little money he did have and was able to stop him from fighting and go to other countries and even fight. You know, now it's different where they built these people up from a very young age. Mm-hmm. You built these people up. When you see LeBron James, right, in sophomore year in high school, junior year in high school, senior year in high school, right, they're building them up. People like OJ Mayo, people like Amar'e Stoudemire. And then every now and then you get somebody who like falls through the cracks like an Enes Kanter, right? And they say, oh, we got to hurry up and get him out of here, right? He's challenging people on issues and he's not afraid to lose everything we've given him. So we got to get this guy out of here, right? And then he was an immigrant Muslim from Turkey, right? Yeah. Who said, you know, I got this platform and I'm going to stand up. And they said, nope, you got to go. You got to go. Yeah. But, you know,
there's a story in our religion, Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu. So there was this time where Muslims were basically, they were small groups, right? But like they were going and conquering these large lands, right? So, you know, the Ghassanids, right? Just different groups of people. So if I'm not mistaken, and may Allah forgive me if I'm wrong, he went to the Heraclius, right? Like this is one of the biggest kings, right, of the time. Like it's like going to fight Russia, right? Or like, you know, one of these big empires. And so he knew and was very familiar with Khalid's track record. He's like, yo, these Arabs are a small group. They barely have, you know, strong weapons, but they're whooping everyone, all of the superpowers, right? They ran through Syria. They was just stomping every area. So Khalid bin Walid came across this commander, and I'm forgetting the commander's name. And long story short, the commander said, look, I know you Arabs are poor, right? You guys are you know, like you guys were in a destitute situation and now y'all up and coming. You guys are not our match, right? I'll strike you a deal, Khalid. I'm going to give you, you know, I will give you food. We'll give you women. We'll give you the best of clothes. We'll give you guys everything, money, everything. Just take it and go, leave. And Khalid said, look, let me tell you something, sir. I didn't come here for food. I didn't come here for money or anything. You're not gonna sell me this. You're not gonna just dangle a little banana and I'm gonna go, oh, let me grab it. No. He said, I came here to make Islam this, like, to take the people who are being oppressed, right, into liberty and make this beautiful religion that stands here. And he said, so there's two choices. It's either you surrender, right? No, he said there's three choices. It's either you surrender, right? Under our rule, right? You pay the jizya, or you fight us and know that there are men who want to die more than you want to live. SubhanAllah. He told him, I didn't come here for money. You think I'm a coward? You're not gonna just dangle, $100 million at me and I'm gonna accept. No, you can't buy me through money. My people and justice for the oppressed is far more important than anything else. So it's either you give up and you just come under our rule. It's either, okay, you don't fully give up, but you pay the jizya under our rule, or you fight us and know that we have men who want to die more than you want to live. And guess what? He eviscerated that army. Literally eviscerated. Khalid bin Walid and his army. I think this was under Umar bin Khattab, radiallahu anhu. He literally eviscerated. And the moral of what I'm trying to say is that we've lost honor. Us as human beings, we've lost honor, right? We're easily, look at our celebrities. We are easily bought with money and materialism. You give somebody just $1 million and they'll do anything. They'll dance naked. They'll sell out their family. They'll do anything for some chicken change. And this is the problem that we have. So, I just wanted to tell that story, real quick, yeah.
And we understand it all wrong. The reason why our leaders, stood at the top is because, the top is the most vulnerable, right? Everything else flows down, right? If you think like a pyramid or a mountain, that you at the
all you can do is go down.
Yeah. All you can do is go down, right? Down is, more sturdy, and the wind and everything, we got it misconstrued where the one at the top is the one that's winning, and everybody takes their resources from the bottom, what little bit they have, and fortify the person up top. And that's just backwards, right? Nah, heavy is the head that wears the crown. That's the most vulnerable place. We got it all misconstrued. We don't owe these people anything. They owe us. We built these people up. These people come out of our communities. They owe us. It's sad because now people is being hand plucked at an early age. Back in the 50s and the 60s and part of the 70s, it don't matter what state of celebrity you rose to, you still lived in our communities, right? So you go on TV and say something crazy. Hey, let me holler at you, man. What but now you off in the gated community. You living in, behind some gate in some white enclave, some white affluent enclave, and we can't get to you. Just comfortable on the internet saying everything. That'd be different if you had to actually come back and live next door to all them people you just went on TV and talked down to and talked down about. Hey, man, we got to talk about this. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, but I think that was a perfect story to kind of end this off of. Before we go, I'm gonna just share my brother's channel. I came across your video when you was giving the history, and you were saying you're not anti-Jew, you're anti-Zionist, and I just thought that was a perfect message, and I love a lot of the history that you gave. I was like, yeah, this is a really good video, so I had to have you up here for this conversation. I really appreciate some of the videos that you've been making, right? And I just wanted to bring you up and let you know that, and kind of just, get opinions on some of this stuff, because this is very important in our community. I'm never telling somebody to do less, right? That's not even in our spirit, right? We only get so long to be on this earth, and then we gone. Then we off to, our final destination. I'm saying do more. I'm saying, yeah, go out and do everything you want to do from Palestine. If you want to put the flag on your car, if you want to lose your job over, if you want to lose your career, if you want to, march 12 hours a day, but just make sure you do more when it comes to your community and your people. people. We got a lot of issues going on in our community. I'm not saying do less. I'm not saying, I am saying there should be some reciprocity. So if you're going to go out there and sacrifice yourself, make sure you're getting something back from their community. Make sure you're able to hold somebody else accountable outside of your community, but we're going to make sure we hold you accountable because we got a lot of issues going on, not only in Indianapolis, but all over the country. And I just wanted to bring this awareness to people, especially people from my community, right? I'm not only just a part of the American Freedmen community, I'm a part of the American Freedmen Muslim community, and I'm a part of the American Muslim community, and then I'm a part of the global Muslim community, right? So we belong to different communities, and we have to understand how to prioritize things. That's why, somebody that's in my position, that's why I go to the masjid that I go to. It's a community mosque. It has tentacles in the community. It's doing for the community. It's feeding the people. It's educating the people, right? It's bringing a sanctuary to that side of town where you wouldn't have nothing but chaos there. Across the street from Masjid Mu'mineen, one of the masjid I attend, is a liquor store. It's a liquor store right there, and it's running. It's running all day, right? We bring, a sense of moral stability to the community and the community outreach that's been done. And when I look at stuff like that Indiana Muslim Advocacy Network, I'm like, man, y'all could have had Imam Umar Khattab on there, right? Y'all could have had Imam Ismail Abdul Alim on there. Y'all could have had Imam Michael Sahir on there. It would have only strengthened, the values and the visions of your mission statement, right? Because we know if you're not at the table, then you on the menu. And that's what I see when I see stuff like that. I know y'all got some words in there for us, right? But y'all don't have none of us on the board. And the reason y'all able to even have that organization, the Islamic Muslim organization, is because of some of the advocacy work that came way before y'all got here. And even if y'all didn't take some of the imams out of the greater Indianapolis area, right? We got them in Gary, we got them in Fort Wayne, we got them in Muncie, right? We got brothers that really, laid this foundation down. So, that's my challenge to the Muslim community that's inside of this city and inside of this state, outside of us. Don't forget about the people that's created the foundation for y'all to be able to go out and practice your religion in peace and be able to grow. Right? Y'all got any closing remarks?
Yeah. One thing I want to say, and I'll give it to brother Charles, is that I would say two things, right? Number one, Muslims, we have to stop selecting who we advocate for, right? We have to advocate for all oppressed people. Of course, your people, come first, and have a sense of urgency when it comes to your help. But let's not place selective, advocacy, right? Palestinians are going through a lot right now. May Allah, ease, whatever it is that's going on. May Allah just break the will of all oppressors. Mm-hmm. But, people probably gonna be like, oh, Seiko, you should, but they're not the only ones. There's Muslims being oppressed all over the world, whether you know it or not. Even in our country as we speak, even in our own cities as we speak, there's Muslims all over that are being, persecuted, that are just, that are being oppressed. And so let's not select who we, advocate for as far as oppression, and let's keep it well rounded, right? Let's keep.
Yeah, I had the fires in the Bronx about a year ago, right?
About a year ago, my almost 2 years ago, actually, because the years go by really quickly. Like you wouldn't believe, like it's really sad what went on. And I don't want to go too much into detail, about it, but if this was any other community, it would have been a different outcome, right? The amount of money that was raised and everything, it just would have been completely different. You understand what I'm saying? So, that's the first part. And then second part is, obviously for Black American Muslims, I think it's time, right? I think it's time to stop this, kumbaya stuff. And, nobody's saying don't advocate for other people. You can, to Brother Ibrahim's point. But just know that, wallahi, Allah's going to ask you about your community, right? About the house that was burning within your own community and what happened there. And, why is it that, you didn't advocate, right? Like you did everything else except for your own people, right? And so that's something that Black American Muslims are supposed to have, definitely in mind moving forward, and, hopefully change the landscape and the conversations that are being had where, you know, they can change that, right? They can make sure that they put their people first while simultaneously worrying about the greater Muslim community, whether it's in your city, whether it's in your state, and as Brother Ibrahim said, throughout the entire world, inshallah.
Inshallah. Well, I don't really have a whole lot. Pretty much is the same, pretty much similar to what Brother Saiku has been saying. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said that our ummah is like the human body. When you have a group of Muslims that are facing issues, whether it's here in America, over in France, because our Muslims, especially our sisters, are catching hell in France, Palestine, those places, you know, we get hurt, you know, and we, and you know, like, you know, when you take a pin and stick it in your skin, you're gonna say ow, right? And we're hurt when we see these things. But it's just like all of you say, yeah, we need to make our dua for everyone, right? And if we can, do what we can to help them, but let's start now. Before we help them, we have to, you know, we got to help ourselves. Because I mean, that the only way we can help other people is if we help ourselves. It's just like I was sharing with you earlier, you know, on the airplane. And how you gonna give people oxygen and you don't give yourself oxygen?
True.
So this is not, so for people who may not understand and are watching this, we are by no means xenophobic or anything like that. This has nothing to do with that. The thing is, we want to stand on ground. We want to have a strong foundation so we can help others. We want to reach out to you, but the only way we can do that is we have to be strong ourselves. I mean, let's say I'm sick. I'm down with COVID, and I'm trying to help others get well. I can't do that. I got to get myself well. I got to get myself strong. When I get myself strong, that might help you get strong. This is all this about. Humanity helping one another. This is part of it.
It's true.
And it's not xenophobic. It's not xenophobic for do for self. Y'all know what they say in the Quran. We all came from a male and a female, but among you I have made you to be many nations and many different tribes, so that you may know one another. One of y'all brothers got to take us out on the dua.
I can do that. All right. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal asr. Inna lafi kursa. Iladina amanu wa amalu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Amen.
I appreciate all you brothers being here. Assalamu alaikum. I hope y'all have a nice night. Is the baby sleep?
so the baby's actually he went to a baby shower. So like, you know, one of my wife's good sisters gave birth. So they at the baby shower. They actually on their way home.
Oh, he's coming back.
Yeah, he don't.
He's gonna take that nap in the car. He coming back.
He gonna come back violent, man. This boy, and you know, I don't know, like, you know, just real quick, like this next generation of babies, man. They, you know, it's my firstborn. Like they're just different. Like they just did. Like he's just he's just a destruction machine, right? And he's smart. He literally just destroys everything in sight. Literally, he just comes and just a machine, like a machine. And I just can't believe it. I'm like, what? Who taught you this? Why? You know, he's grabbing the wires, trying to, you know, rip them. I'm like, dude, why you woke up with violence, man? I wasn't this violent when I was younger, but you know.
I bought Jameer a Ninja Turtle toy when he like some years ago. He wasn't even like maybe he 1 or 2. He's just crying, man, because he couldn't move the toy how he wanted to move it. And then he broke the toy, and then he was happy. And then I'm like, he like cried for like 5 hours. He breaks the toy, and now he's happy. And then Ibrahim, man, you just gotta watch him, man. He touches everything, man. He if he can get to it, and like I'm hoping as he get older, he's 7 years old now, man. But it's still like he breaks the toys, he touches everything, man.
He's pretty active.
Man, he's active, man. We got him in basketball, but man, he touches everything. I don't know what to say. My mom bought a big aloe vera like leaf, and I came out and it was just broke because he wanted to see what was inside of it. It like nothing is off limits.
Hey, brother, don't feel bad because you know what? Guess what? He'll probably end up being an engineer because you know when you listen to people that go into engineering, they say, you know, when I was little, I took a car and I broke it apart just because I want to see what's in there. Because it's all about curiosity. Yeah, look. I mean, I know you.
It's true. What he's saying is true. I've also heard a lot of that stuff because my son does the same thing. It's like how would I say it? Like he picks at things, right? Like he's only 10 months. So like if he sees something, he'll like, you know, like investigate and like, you know, try to pick at it. And then like, you know, he'll, you know, and it's actually a sign of intelligence. And, you know, to end, there was a thing that I saw on TikTok. They said, you know, we need to thank Allah that our children are actually, you know, destroying things, right? And it's saying because it shows how, you know, intelligent they are, right? If they weren't intelligent, they wouldn't know to destroy. Okay, this is how I drop this, or I pick this apart, or I break it, right? Like, you know, they wouldn't know that. And it's a high sign of intelligence, honestly. But, you know, may Allah bless all of our children, you know, show them the right way, guide them. And, you know, I think the sons, man, I think we've had enough of them, man. They got to chill out. For sure.